Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Hard to believe, man. Saints will be on the practice field Wednesday. Camp is here. Terrell, ESPN.com. Good enough to join us for a couple minutes. Give us a camp preview and rundown. Good write-up today over at ESPN.com. If you want to read Cat's camp preview, go do it there. Hey, Cat, how are you?
I'm doing great. I can't believe it's almost time for training camp. I don't think I'm ready yet. I think I need more time.
Do you think when do you think for the players that it just as long as you've been doing this and covering not only the Saints but the Bengals in your time as well, but like when do you think it actually hits the players and they actually find a rhythm? At what point of camp?
That's a great question. One I'll actually have to ask some players. I mean, I expect it takes at least a week because before you put the pads on, it's almost like it's not training camp, especially for the offensive and defensive linemen. I mean, like you can watch them, but you're not really learning anything until there's pads, and that comes on day 3 or 4. So, I mean, it probably takes a week.
Yeah. Do you think
person?
Just the have you noticed any progression during the off-season work, your minicamp, OTAs, all that sort of stuff, or any notable progression with any player or position group?
Maybe not position group yet. I feel like when you're watching practice, you end up fixating on, certain players or position groups. You don't always see it all at once. But then I feel like certain players just keep making themselves stand out. I feel like DeMarco Jackson had a lot of nice plays in June. And, that doesn't always translate to July, but that was one guy that stood out to me. As I was saying earlier, the offensive line, I really can't say anything about him from June. But, I'll be watching the wide receivers a lot and the cornerbacks a lot. Alontae Taylor is another player that, you can't help but notice, obviously, after last year. And so I feel like he's going to be someone who makes himself known again. But I don't know that I saw significant progression from any position group yet.
I think I could say, you said you'd be watching the wide receiver and the cornerbacks. I look at that as two of the deeper positions on the team. So when you say you're going to be watching those two position groups, what specifically are you going to be looking for?
With the cornerbacks, you want to see who's going to step up at slot, how they're using their cornerbacks. I do think the corners are a deep group. I think that you'll probably see some guys that are listed as DBs who can play multiple positions. They love doing that. They love their positionless players. The wide receivers, it's interesting. I don't know that I feel like it's a deep group because when you look at the 3 main guys, there's a big drop-off after that. But you could probably say that for any team. I mean, you're not going to have 5 outstanding wide receivers. I think I feel that way with the Saints because there's just so much unknown. Chris Olave is going to be good, but you don't know what you're getting out of Michael Thomas. Rashid Shaheed has the potential to be very good, but he has to take that step up in year 2, and that doesn't always happen. And then after that, it's kind of like, okay, well, there's multiple guys that can make the team, but no real standouts yet. But, that's what training camp is for.
Yeah. She's on Twitter at @Cat_Terrell, ESPN.com. Make sure you give her a follow. I feel like I'm obligated to ask you some Derek Carr question. I just don't know what Derek Carr question to ask. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, he's a veteran guy. Like, what is his training camp going to be for Derek Carr?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is are his teammates going to buy in? That's so important with a quarterback. And last year, I thought it was just so odd in so many ways. Jameis was hurt and coming back. I feel like, I don't remember if it was OTAs or minicamp, but there was the whole uproar about him limping. And then, he came back for training camp and he immediately, or not immediately, but right before the season got hurt and then got hurt again. And then it was the whole, whose team is it? Jameis Winston's or Andy Dalton's? That went on forever. And when quarterback doesn't feel like it's truly his team, I think that's got to affect how you play in a lot of ways. So I think when you talk about Derek Carr, the fact that he and Michael Thomas teamed up clicked immediately is huge, because Michael Thomas is going to be one of your most important players if you're getting the full potential of Michael Thomas. So that's big. And also, Carr has talked about how he felt like he didn't give the Raiders enough last year. Maybe he couldn't compartmentalize everything that was happening. And so he feels like he needs to do better this year. And players always say that. But, can he wipe that away and start over here and be successful? And I think he can, but, it's just the chemistry's got to come together over the next few weeks and months.
I know at ESPN.com on your piece was asked the most impactful addition, and you said Derek Carr, and that's obviously the answer. If you couldn't say Derek Carr, who would you say? Either free agent or rookie?
Oh, that's a good question. I've said before that I feel like Isaiah Foskey has the potential to be the most impactful rookie because of the nature of the position he plays. I think you'd love for him to be, although that would probably mean that Payton Turner is not moving forward in year 3. So kind of, I guess it's how you look at it. But, he has the potential to, really impact his position and the team. I don't know if the other rookies have as much potential to do that, if that makes sense. Like, I think BREC is going to play a lot, but, when you draft a defensive end high, you expect him to generate a pass rush. You expect him to be disruptive. And you can do that, the most from the edge rusher position, usually. And so, I feel like Foskey has the ability to gain a starting role really quickly. I mean, he's got to beat out Turner and he's got to beat out Carl Granderson, basically, right? So that would be my pick, but doesn't mean he will, but I think he could be that guy.
I got a couple more. Ear to ground, are you here? Like, I'm really interested in the last 2 first-round picks, not Chris Olave, but Trevor Penning and Payton Turner. Like, we're getting close to having to label Turner a bust, just a miss. Are you hearing anything about optimism in either of those 2 guys heading into this camp?
We were talking to, Saints coaches and front office guys at the Senior Bowl. And, I feel like there's a lot of talk about Payton Turner was hurt. And I also remember, I feel like it was Jeff Ireland saying he needed to be the right size. So I don't know if that meant, he was overweight or underweight or what's going on. But I thought it was interesting. It was kind of like, does that mean Turner's not doing the right thing? Does that mean his injury impacted that? So I don't know. I feel like we don't hear about Payton Turner at all anymore, which is the last thing you want from a first-round pick, right? The guy to just so I don't know. I feel like I never hear about him at all except for fans.
Wow. So
it's not good. You don't want to fade into obscurity as a former first-round pick. And I think you asked about Penning as well. Yeah, I think with Penning it's different. I think there's a lot of optimism. I think I don't remember him. Wrong. Sorry, I'm trying to remember a lot of players, but I don't remember him coming in to the NFL with a ton of injury history. I know the injuries he had last year he had not had before, so it's not like he's re-injuring the same old injuries. But yeah, 2 major injuries in 1 year, that's definitely not great. But I would chalk that up. Maybe it's just really bad luck. I think he's a guy that they probably love for him to take that starting left tackle spot. I mean, they're still in a good position with James Hurst, but I think that he's going to compete with Hurst for that spot. I don't know if the Saints are willing to hand it to him yet, but I think that's the guy they want to be their left tackle of the future. So optimistic.
That would be massive if he won that job over the next month in camp. Last thing, Kat Terrell's with us, ESPN.com. She's on Twitter at @Kat_Terrell. Make sure you give her a follow. You did publish your projected 53-man roster, which is the first of, I'm sure, many that you'll have to do at this point, but it's a good jumping off point. What was, if you had to say, the hardest decision or hardest decisions that you had to make whenever you were making this 53-man roster, what would you say?
Well, I'll go through them really quick. I thought offensive line there was really no surprises there. I would say that for defensive line, too. Those are pretty boring. Tight end, it kind of came down to, are they going to keep 3 or 4? I put Lucas Kroll on there, but I think that's iffy. I was talking about this earlier. Wide receiver, there's 3 guys that I'm like, they could make the roster, they could not. Someone in camp has to step up. I think Tre'Quan might because of, he's a blocking receiver. But it's not a given. There's probably cheaper guys out there. Tre'Quan is expensive, but he makes more than maybe like a rookie would. And the last 2, I put Brian Edwards and AC Perry on there, but it's really kind of pick your poison right now. And I think it comes down to maybe who has the best relationship with Derek Carr by the end of training camp. Because Drew Brees used to get guys on that team at that 5th or 6th spot just because he liked them. Yeah. I think the same could happen with Carr. I mean, you just want a receiver you're comfortable with. So Edwards has a history with Carr, but it doesn't mean by any means that he's a lock to make the roster.
Yeah, for me, which receivers after Chris Olave, I know everybody's optimistic about Michael Thomas, but when you haven't played in 3 years, I'm skeptical. It could be a little to me. I'm like, it could be anybody.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not great, right?
But you can look at it. You can look at it 2 ways, though, right? I mean, yes, it's not great, but you also have a ton of options, and someone has to materialize, right? I mean, someone in that group has to step up and have a big year.
I will say, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom because the Saints have a ton of pass catching options. I mean, and they're gonna have to get the ball to all of these guys, to Taysom Hill. Alvin Kamara, Foster Moreau, a ton of options outside the receivers. So it might not matter so much who the 5th or 6th guy is if they optimize and spread the ball out like they used to do and be so successful. So it's not like a completely bad thing. It's just kind of like, ooh, the end of that wide receiver group is not great in July, but maybe in August we're talking a different story. There's always some training camp superstar that comes along this time of the year that everyone falls in love with, makes the roster, and then we never hear from him again. So I'm looking forward to that.
We'll start to get those answers on Wednesday. That is not where I thought you were going with that comment. I thought it was going to be somebody who's a star and makes the team, and we never hear from again, but I guess there are always those people.
I could list so many of these guys, and you would be like, who?
Do it, go. Do it, go. I want to hear it. Go.
Salim Hakeem, Andy Tanner. I don't know if Nick Toon counts. There was a guy a few years ago that fans were obsessed with. I can't remember his name right now. Oh, man. I'll have to send you a list later. I can think of a couple.
It was worth it for Andy Tanner. That is one of the Drew Brees got this guy a job. But you know what? Then there's always who was the running back? Who was the running back? A couple of years ago who had the great preseason game against Baltimore, and then
Jaguars.
Was it Tony Jones? I think
Jones made the roster, but Tony Jones made the roster after they cut the 2 veteran guys they brought in, and then the 2 veteran guys went on to sign with the Ravens, and they both had like 500 or 600 yards that year, and the Saints had to trade for Mark Ingram. And
Tony Jones played in like 1 game and he was awful.
Yeah,
right?
Well, he injured Teron Armstead's elbow. It was not great.
No.
But the Saints, I guess, defense. Like the way training camp played out, I understood those decisions at the time, but that did not play out well. And then they had to go trade for Mark Ingram, and oh man! But no, there was a receiver a few years ago, a running back that fans loved, and he did go on to have some success. I'll remember his name in a minute, I'm sure, after I'm off the air and people are like, why can't you remember this player's name?
Text it to me, but it was worth it for the Andy Tanner poll. It was the question was totally worth it. Kat Terrell, reader stuff at ESPN.com. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.